On the debate tonight, opposition parties rally together in one voice. Moving the Election Commission, they have one single demand: increase VVPAT verification with EVMs. In an unprecedented move, 22 opposition parties met the Election Commission to submit a memorandum demanding that VVPAT-EVM matching be done at random before counting begins, and if any discrepancy is found, that all EVMs in that assembly segment be matched to VVPATs.
हर विधानसभा के 5 ईवीएम मशीनों के वीवीपैट गिनने चाहें, लेकिन इलेक्शन कमीशन ने कहा कि ये वीवीपैट जो है ये पूरी जो प्रक्रिया करने के बाद गिने जाएंगे। हमने कहा नहीं, उनको सबसे पहले गिनना चाहिए, और अगर उनमें कोई गलती पाई गई तो फिर उस विधानसभा के तमाम मशीनों के वीवीपैट गिनने चाहिए।
What we are asking today, all 5 VVPATs has to be counted in the beginning. There is any discrepancy, you have to count total VVPATs of the assembly segment.
Meanwhile, the BJP has hit back. They say the exit polls, which predict a comfortable victory for the BJP-led NDA, has caused the opposition to make these demands. BJP claims the opposition is attempting a face saver.
वो अपने हारने का बहाना ढूंढ रहे हैं। इसी ईवीएम से जब कांग्रेस पार्टी जीते राजस्थान, मध्य प्रदेश और छत्तीसगढ़, अस्तरहीन, बेबुनियाद और हास्यास्पद बात कोई हो नहीं सकती।
As the EVM row escalates, several videos have surfaced on social media claiming to be proof of EVM misuse. The Election Commission, however, has shut down every single EVM rigging claim.
The Election Commission rule says after the counting is concluded, these slips are matched with the EVMs, but the opposition wants the opposite. On the other hand, they have demanded that if there is a discrepancy and the VVPAT slips don't match, the assembly constituency, the entire assembly constituency's VVPAT slips should be matched with EVM.
While the opposition is in a huddle over the EVM issue before results day, in the BJP bastion, Prime Minister met the Council of Ministers ahead of the NDA dinner hosted by Amit Shah. As the EVM row escalates, Mir now asks, is the opposition's EVM charge valid? Can EVMs be rigged? Is the opposition too late in raising the EVM issue and making these demands now? Let's debate.
Well, that's the question we really have to ask now. The opposition has placed before the Election Commission 3 demands that my colleagues have just gone through with you. Other than that, there is the question of the dissent note that Mr. Lavasa pointed out as one of the election commissioners, that he was worried that his dissent note was not being made public or not being taken note of. They have been, to be completely fair, from day one till the final day of this election process, questions being raised about the conduct and the manner of functioning of the Election Commission. The point really is this: are the questions being raised, or should the questions be raised in as far as the Model Code of Conduct is concerned, where the election commissioners have discretion because they decide whether or not this is a violation of the code. On the other hand, the process of voting and using the EVMs and using the VVPATs doesn't have discretion. There are laws that are already set down and they have to be followed. Is there room to ask the question? And is this the right time to ask the question? Should have been asked a lot earlier. That's the question we are asking. And of course, we have an excellent panel. So if you want to be part of this conversation, you can join us either on InBall or you can call us. Raman Malik with the BJP. T.S. Krishnamurthy is the former Chief Election Commissioner, and we're very happy to have him as part of this conversation. Amiben Yagnik for the Congress, A. Sarvanan for the DMK, Yogendra Yadav, National President of Swaraj India. I welcome all of you to this conversation. I do want to start with Mr. Krishnamurthy. Mr. Krishnamurthy, good evening, and thank you for giving us your time. I appreciate your time on this matter. I'm sure you've gone through everything that has been placed before the Election Commission today. If we break it down, the first request is that the 5 VVPATs and EVMs that are randomly selected and matched per constituency be done at the beginning of the day and not at the end of the day. Do you believe that this is a valid request, and will it make a difference to the credibility of the answer, of the result?
Well, I am not able to straight away give an answer to you because I do not know what is the implication behind counting at the beginning and counting at the end, because we never had VVPAT when I was the Chief Election Commissioner.
Yes.
In fact, we went only by the electronic voting machines, which I stand by these electronic voting machines. They cannot be manipulated. They cannot be tutored from outside as many people claim it to be. In fact, two chief ministers who had challenged it in the court of law, they could not prove it to the Supreme Court, and ultimately they won in the next elections, and they don't keep talking against these electronic voting machines. Be that as it may, now that the VVPAT has been introduced, it is certainly the political parties wanted it and they have introduced it. Now, to say at the time of the counting of the election that I should have 50% VVPAT should be examined, I feel it is rather too late in the day. The Supreme Court has given a judgment, you follow the judgment. As far as the beginning or end, I don't see any difference in it, but I don't know whether the Election Commission has any argument, because I don't have full details of the procedure in terms of counting first or counting at the end.
Yes.
But if the Supreme Court has given a judgment, accept it gracefully, then have a committee examine it whether it can be improved, because my own feeling is it is not the end of the day. I am sure after some time they will say they want 75% VVPAT verification, and some others will say 100% verification, and all the parties are equally guilty. I am not blaming any particular party. All parties are equally guilty because they use this as an excuse for their defeat.
Mr. Krishnamurthy, obviously parties have done this even when we had paper ballots, but I do believe the second request that the opposition parties have put forward is that if there is any discrepancy found during the verification of VVPAT and EVM, that 100% counting of paper slips take place in the assembly segment where the discrepancy has been found. And we had Abhishek Manu Singhvi and a couple of other opposition members say that this is a question of testing a glass of milk from an entire batch. If the glass of milk is bad, then you have to test the entire batch. You have to take into consideration the entire batch. Do you see this as a valid argument?
No, it is very easy to argue that way. I agree. There is some merit in what he says. But at the same time, you must understand the practicalities of counting. You cannot be doing for 100%. Take, if you want, a certain other percentage and do it. Or take some 10 or 15 extra polling stations, do it. But to say 100% is going to be practically difficult in announcing the result. It will take more time. Do you want that? If that is so, then let the Supreme Court give a decision. I don't think the Election Commission should agree for a 100% verification for the whole constituency in such cases.
The other question I want to raise with you is that the opposition has also pointed out that they're no longer talking about just EVM manipulation, they're talking about EVM replacement. The videos that have been doing the rounds on social media over the last 2 days of EVMs being transported without security or without officers has brought them to ask the question of whether or not these EVMs are being used to replace the ones in the strong room. Do you find this worrying? Did these videos worry you as well?
They are certainly entitled to ask this.
Yes.
They are certainly entitled to ask. No, they are certainly entitled to ask these questions. But we have to verify what is the reason behind this. There must be a proper inquiry and find out whether there is a manipulated step or whether it was a negligence on the part of some people. But if it is a negligence, I don't mind ordering a repoll in any of these polling stations if the rules have not been followed.
Right. I also want to bring up, one last question, and then I'll bring in Mr. Yogendra Yadav, to respond to you. There was also the question of the dissent of the third member in the MCC committee to decide whether or not the model code of conduct had been violated or not. Now, Mr. Lavasa has written letters actually talking about how his dissent was not taken into consideration or was not recorded. I want your expert opinion on whether you believe that is a problem.
Is it a question to me?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is, Mr. Krishnamurthy.
Yeah. Well, personally, I feel there is no harm in disclosing the dissent and the reasons for the dissent, as also reasons for the majority view. But you have to bear into one thing in mind. If a Supreme Court gives a judgment 2-1, you don't blame the Supreme Court as biased in favor of some particular person. So if the Election Commission 2-1 takes a decision, I agree that the dissent can be recorded, the reasons can be recorded, but do not come to a conclusion that the Election Commission is biased, unless and until you can prove the mala fide.
All right. So, and of course, the difference between inefficiency and mala fide intent, where the intent is to tilt the results in one way or the other. Mr. Yogendra Yadav is with us. Mr. Yadav, good evening and thank you for joining us. You've tweeted this morning as well that the problem may be of EVM replacement. I want you to just respond to Mr. Krishnamurthy, who's given us his educated opinion about the opposition's stand today. Do you agree with him?
Very delighted to be on the same panel as Mr. Krishnamurthy, a very fine election commissioner in his time, and I wish we could preserve the kind of spirit that people like him displayed. On the three specific questions, on the EVM replacement charge, I think it's a very serious charge. If you ask me right now, we have not had sufficient evidence to prove that charge. I would not imagine that EVMs are being replaced. That's a very, very serious charge. It would need a lot of evidence. My only worry is this. It should be, the onus should be on Election Commission to completely satisfy every party in every single case. If someone says this truck was going with so many EVMs, get the footage, get all the candidates, satisfy them, and if in one case there is a slight apprehension, just order a repoll. This is far too sacred to allow even an iota of doubt. Unfortunately, I don't find the Election Commission doing so. These are useless charges, wrong charges, etc. That's not how you treat something as sacred as that. On the second issue of VVPAT counting, allow me to correct Mr. Krishnamurthy slightly. I think because, as he said, this kind of question did not come up in his own days. I think for the first time now, the opposition has demanded something sensible. They began by saying, don't use EVMs, use ballot papers. I thought it was silly. Then they said, count all the slips 100%. I thought it was unnecessary and over the top. Then finally, it has been settled by the Supreme Court. It says 5 VVPAT should be sampled. I don't know how the figure of 5 was arrived at. All right, they've arrived. They're saying 5 VVPAT should be checked randomly. Now, the only issue that the opposition has raised, and to my mind, that is the real valid, for the first time now, opposition is demanding something absolutely correct. They are saying, please do the matching at the beginning of count rather than at the end of the count. And the difference, Mr. Krishnamurthy, is related to this. The opposition is saying, first of all, pick 5 VVPATs out of, say, 150 to 200, 250 in some cases. Pick 5. And if those 5 match, perfect, do your normal EVM count, and that's the end of the counting. But if even in one case, as you know, not in a single case should be a discrepancy between the slips and the EVM board count. The opposition is saying, if you find a discrepancy even in one case, in that case, that entire assembly segment, there should be proper paper count. To my mind, it's a very reasonable request. It would go a long way towards satisfying the apprehensions, because EC should normally say, well, we don't even expect a problem in a single EVM throughout the country. So why should EC be apprehensive about it? They have said there is no case of mismatch so far. They said they have not had a single case of mismatch. That is EC's claim. In which case, why should they be worried? They should say, all right, let's do it. So I don't find EC stand reasonable on this. I would have thought EC would now wish to go out of its way to satisfy, because, you know, even if it takes 2-3 extra hours, isn't it very important at the end of the day for the opposition to say, yes, we lost this election because the people voted against it?
Yes.
Do you want the Bangladesh-Pakistan kind of syndrome to be played in our country, where the losers always say, no, 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 there was some hanky-panky? On the third issue, I'm afraid there we are looking at complete violation of the basic spirit of law. Mr. Ashok Lavasa has been demanding something which is absolutely elementary, that is, that dissent be recorded. This happens in every commission, in every, forget constitutional body, this happens in small management, I mean direct board of management, it happens in smaller committees, it happens in administrative committees. Here are such critical decisions, and you don't want dissent to be recorded, and then you take a 2-1 decision, once again majority decision. Now, Election Commission is entitled to taking a majority decision. Majority decision is a legitimate decision, but they are simply saying make it public. And again by 2-1 they decide not to make it public. So this is completely illegitimate. I'm very disappointed.
Well, Mr. Krishnamurthy, if you want to respond before I bring in the rest of my panel, and the question is simply this: if there are videos doing the rounds right now, and there are, of EVMs or what seems like EVMs being moved without security, without officers, at a time when there's no counting day or polling day, which is against the rules, doesn't this bring into question what is going on in the country? How will citizens trust right now?
No. I mentioned to you right at the beginning, saying that if there are cases where it has been done against the rules, they must be inquired into. And if you want have a re-poll in all these polling stations, it may enhance the credibility. I have no doubts about it.
Well, just
only thing is what Mr. Yogendra Yadav mentioned.
Yes.
I agree that if there is a dissent, no harm in recording it. What is the problem in recording it? I don't find any difficulty. I have been in the government for 30 to 40 years. I have always recorded the dissent if there was in a committee, if there was a difference of opinion. I had no problem on that.
Right. You know, Mr. Krishnamurthy, it finally boils down to one question, and I'm going to come back to this question. From the day the schedule of this election was announced, to the point where the Prime Minister made an announcement of his ASAT testing and the launch, using Pulwama and Balkot in the elections, bringing up, religious differences in this elections. Veterans have written about it, journalists have written about it, retired bureaucrats have written about the fact that they believe the Election Commission is not being fair and is not being uniform in its treatment of all parties. Do you believe that this time the Election Commission perhaps has let itself down? That irrespective of who wins this election, the Election Commission will have lost?
No. I will only point out that the Election Commission should have taken their decisions quickly and pass a speaking order. I won't say, for example, on the matters you mentioned, whether the Prime Minister violated or not. I have already told, I'm on record saying that you can argue both ways. It is easy to argue both ways. And so a shrewd advocate can take a view on each side of the argument. So it is individually, if you want me to comment on that, I don't have the full facts. I won't be able to comment on that. But both are arguable and it is a debatable point. So in such debatable points, if Election Commission by a majority has taken a decision, you challenge it in the court. Don't settle it in the court, on the streets.
Yes. Don't settle it on the streets. Mr. Krishnamurthy, former Election Commissioner, giving us very clear responses of what he believes is going on right now with this election. I just want to open this up to the rest of the panel, and I have the rest of the panel with me.
Can I add one more thing?
Yes, please. Please, Mr. Krishnamurthy.
Can I add one more thing?
Yes.
This election has emphasized the need for electoral reforms. And I have a great regard for Mr. Yogendra Yadav, and I agree with him that it is necessary for us to take up these electoral reforms as early as possible, and I have no doubts he will agree with me.
Mr. Yadav?
Yes, I would. Thank you. Of course I do. And when he was election commissioner, we went with people like him. And I really wish Election Commission could restore that kind of a spirit, where Election Commission was fair and was keen to be seen to be fair. What distinguishes us from other democracies is not just that we have more people, that in our case, always the loser concedes that they have lost the election, that they bow to a popular mandate. And that is something we need to retain. And I'm afraid the manner in which the Election Commission has conducted this year, we are beginning to lose that. That is my fear. I, of course, don't expect Mr. Krishnamurthy to comment on this.
Well, let me rephrase the question then. Mr. Krishnamurthy, the Election Commission this year went to Supreme Court and said and submitted to the court that it is helpless and toothless in this matter, in the matters that were raised, and there's nothing it can do. It was only on the instruction of the Supreme Court, in fact, that the Election Commission took any decisions. Do you agree that the Election Commission is toothless and can't do anything?
Well, I would like to...
Yes, go ahead.
No, I would like to respond on this a little more carefully. The Article 329 of the Constitution does not give any power for judiciary to interfere during the election process in the individual matters. But When the Election Commission said it is toothless, I think they were not telling the whole truth. We had powers in certain areas, but we didn't have certain powers. For example, in Anantapur, one of the party men went and broke the electronic voting machine. What could we do? Just file an FIR. And then if the party to which he belonged comes to power, that FIR will become meaningless. So in such cases, the Election Commission should be able to suspend or impose monetary penalty and suspend his rights during the election process. If some of these powers, particularly the model code, some of these things, if they can be given a legislative shape, I believe Election Commission can perform better.
Very well said, Mr. Krishnamurthy. I want to thank you for your time. Yogendra Yadav, please stay with us as we open this up right now to the rest of the panel. Ami Yagnik, I want you to respond to what Mr. Krishnamurthy has beautifully put forward. And he did say, of course, that there is room to ask questions, but perhaps the questions have come too late. And in terms of what the opposition has demanded today, why so late in the day, Ms. Yagnik?
Well, if you see the instances that came to the fore, and social media was viral with all these happenings, that the trucks are loaded with EVM machines and there is no security, and not one instance they were transported from one place to another, maybe one strong room to another strong room, but in absence of any security, in absence of any care and caution to be taken at this point of time at such a crucial election and in an election process, and not one instance, many instances. So that raised a concern, and when a concern is raised, I think it is the duty of every party to bring it to the notice of the Election Commission. But in this case, if it was so viral, I think the Election Commission has enough powers to take suo motu cognizance of these kind of issues, because it's a statutory body which is vested with powers to see that there are fair elections that happen in the country, and it can be raised by any party, not necessarily the opposition parties. But when it was not taken as immediately it has to be taken suo motu, I think the parties have to take a resort to this kind of procedures and bring it to the notice of the Election Commission. Okay, here are cases. We need fair elections. It's the voice of the people that is being represented by the opposition parties. It is very, very strange that the BJP has not even uttered a word. It is also one of the parties in this country who is contesting elections, but it is absolutely silent. It should have said that yes, this should be fair elections. There should be a thorough check of all these things, and that we are here with you. They also should have come before the Election Commission and said that yes, it should be looked into very fairly. Why is this happening? It hasn't happened before. So this is a time when the Election Commission should have
Raman Malik an opportunity to respond,
rather than putting it on the opposition parties.
Mr. Malik, Ami Yagnik is right about the fact that when these videos came up, in fact, the BJP went on overdrive defending the videos. It would have been just as fair for you to also demand that these videos be looked into by the Election Commission. Why didn't you ask that?
Faye, I believe when we were debating the same topic earlier in the afternoon, and the gentleman was there who was explaining the entire process, he also narrated it. And as far as whatever I have seen in the last election since 1998 onwards till now, is that whenever there's an election and the ballot is casted or the button is pressed in the machine, at both the times, before and after, the VVPAT, or let's say the voting machine EVMs, or earlier the ballot boxes, were checked, signed, sealed with a cloth, and the signature of the polling agents were there. And that is the process. It is followed by ending the day. And those EVMs are taken into custody of the central forces with the ROs along and deposited into the strong room. And when they are opened, again, the signatures, serial numbers...
Which to question, right, Mr. Raman Malik, why were these EVMs then moving around on a day which was neither polling nor counting?
I've been listening to everyone very carefully, and let me answer to this. So my question here is, when you start the process of counting the votes, do you check whether the seals are there or not? Do you check whether the signatures and serial numbers match or not? Do you check all these basic facts or not? And if you say that you do not, then that's another case. But if you do check it, then those EVMs which are already submitted and sealed with your signatures, with your representative signature, how are you going to challenge that? That is one part.
Okay.
The second thing is, the same process followed in Punjab, the same process was in Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh and other states, in Delhi also. So my question here is, how is it that the process was okay then, laws were okay then and not now?
Okay, let me take, let me 1 second, just for the benefit of our audience, I want to bring in Mr. Yogendra Yadav. Mr. Yadav, I believe it's also important to explain to our audience why this is a problem and what's the concern. Now, if I'm not mistaken, as soon as voting is over, it is important, after 6 o'clock they close the gates, the last people vote, they wrap the machine in cloth, they seal it with wax, it is signed by representatives of every candidate in that constituency, then loaded into marked vans, which are marked saying these are election duty vans. With security of the central forces, it is moved to a strong room. All the election EVMs are put in the strong room and sealed, double locked. They are not to be opened until the morning of counting. CCTV. Is that the reason why these videos are a reason for concern? Because we don't know what EVMs these are. They're moving without security. Do you believe the Election Commission's responses today have clarified those concerns for you individually as a citizen?
There are two things we need to appreciate. Number one, the procedures written down by Election Commission are very, very elaborate. I would say almost foolproof. And that is the strength of our democracy. All over the world, people take our procedures and replicate it. So if some of these things are happening, some misplacing of or replacing of EVMs, there are not one but 2 or 3 ways of catching it. And in the last instance, remember, your own polling agent had signed that EVM. And therefore, if when the EVMs are open, your polling agent signatures are not there, you can object there and then. So there are multiple ways of ensuring. So let's not simply be guided by the existence of a video. By the moment we see a video, let us not conclude that the entire process has been broken and that rigging is taking place, EVMs have been changed, etc. But the important thing is that for Election Commission to satisfy the public in each single case. If there is a video of a vehicle moving around, you can see EVMs. Now, the onus is on Election Commission to explain, even if it means, Election Commission has said these are those additional EVMs. All right, if those are additional EVMs, please give me the vehicle number. Please say even those additional EVMs move with some procedure. Were those protocols being followed? Show me the EVM numbers. Do all these things. So basically, I do not believe that EVM changes are taking place. But I do believe that we have been presented with sufficient evidence to raise doubts. Those doubts must be settled. My disappointment right now, because we should be very careful in putting these allegations, my dissatisfaction at the moment is only this much. Why is the Election Commission not going out of its way, not only to deny, but actually to clarify, give evidence, call all the candidates, call representatives of political parties, say, all right, now let's look at the video together. This is the vehicle. Let's take the vehicle details. Let's just remove all doubts. It's very important for the future of our democracy that even the slightest of doubt be removed. I do believe that at the moment these are doubts, no more. We have not seen conclusive evidence of EVMs actually being changed. So let's not rush to conclusions. But we still have 24 hours, and I would really want Election Commission to go out of its way, and in the slightest case where some doubt still remains, order a repoll, as Mr. Krishnamurthy said. Do that. What is at stake is not one constituency. What is at stake is not one candidate or their future. What is at stake is trust in the electoral process. That must be maintained without any violation.
Very well said. Mr. Saravanan is with the DMK. Mr. Saravanan, you know, the opposition parties came together and they've been criticized for bringing into question our entire democratic process, thereby weakening our democracy. I want your response to that.
Yeah, see, questioning the democracy the process will strengthen the democracy. When you meekly submit whatever the authority says, that is not good for the democracy at all. Even if it is going to be at the 11th hour, it is the right thing to do. See, in Faye, we have a saying in Tamil, which says, Oru paanai sotrukku oru soru padam. It means when a pot of rice is boiling, you just need to take a rice to find out whether the pot is cooked or not. The same analogy applies to VVPATs also. When you say, with a particular thing that one VVPAT is not functioning, it's not tallying, how can we be assured of the entire batch of those EVMs used in an assembly segment? So what is wrong in demanding that if there is an EVM and a VVPAT mismatch, that the entire assembly segment has to be counted? This will strengthen the democratic process. It will inspire confidence into the mind of the voters and mind of the contestants. That is more important. Justice should not only be done, it should also be seen to be done. I think that is the point, and that is the point the Election Commission is missing for deliberate reasons. The actions of the two election commissioners, the chief election commissioner and the other one, does not inspire confidence at all. Looks like they are in cahoots with the ruling government, and that is the problem here. And we were talking about Mr. Yogendra Yadav was saying that I have not seen any instances of EVM replacement. We will not know about that until when we go to the counting agency, counting place. So I'll tell you exactly what will happen. We have witnessed this in Tamil Nadu. This is what will happen. You look at the places where these are taking place. It is happening in Bihar, it is happening in Uttar Pradesh, it is happening in Jharkhand, where the state government and the central government are the allies of the BJP. If a polling agent says, my signature is not there, this EVM is mismatched, he'll simply be thrown out with the help of the police. This happened in the state of Tamil Nadu. Mark my words, this will happen tomorrow, day after tomorrow. This will happen in Uttar Pradesh, this will happen in Bihar.
Okay, Raman Malik will respond. Mr. Malik, respond, please. All right, Mr. Saravanan, we heard you out.
That is why we are opposing this.
Okay, all right. Raman Malik, respond, please.
All that I'm saying here are a couple of points, ma'am. There are people who have served this nation through politics or otherwise also. People like Pranab Mukherjee, who has served the politics, served the highest office of India. He's also said certain things today morning. I am asking the simple question, which has to be asked by every Indian, and that is, sir, the same machinery is working. The same machinery has given you certain seats. The same machinery will also give you certain number of seats in this election. So will you say that, yes, we do not trust this machinery, hence we are wanting a report? The whole point is that
Mr.
there should be a grace and finesse in your loss also, which unfortunately...
No,
but Mr. Malik, in previous cases, these videos did not come about. There is a video of a man that came about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, walking into the booth and voting for other people. There are these videos that have surfaced now.
There was a video of Bengal also coming. You never came up with that. You never came up with the video showing that the people in West Bengal were going ahead and marking the thing, and you did not make a hue cry. So let's, knowing things with the way it is happening, I would rather...
No, so one second. So one minute. Mr. Malik, what you're saying effectively... One second. Let me ask the question. If you're saying this is happening in Bengal as well, you're accepting that the system is flawed and the system can be gamed by a political party that's in power.
Commission, we have also raised our concern. It is not that we have not raised our concern. There are various applications there from BJP. All that I'm asking is, now that you must also talk about things which are happening in not just one place, but the other places also. Now, right now, you're showing this video of Faridabad. Why do you not come up and show the videos of Bengal? Why do you not show the videos of other places? So, giving Gyan, saying that yes,
why don't you show that?
Are wrong, only in your state and not anywhere else. It is a hypocritical.
Okay, let me just clarify this before I go. I want to bring in Yogendra Yadav, but let me just clarify this as a channel. We do not run a viral video on the screen. One second, Mr. Sarvanan. I just have to clarify to my viewers. The channel will not run a viral video on screen unless the Election Commission has acknowledged the video and has looked into it and responded to it. So we will only run videos that the Election Commission is looking into and has acknowledged is a problem. That way, there could be videos on the internet that are from 3-4 elections ago and are not current, which is why we don't run other videos. We're only running the ones that the Election Commission has acknowledged. Mr. Yadav, here's the question. If Raman Malik says that this is being done in West Bengal by the government in power, in TMC, it effectively proves that the BJP also believes that the system can be gamed by a party in power. Is that not true?
That's the larger point I wanted to make, Faye. You know, there's nothing special in what we are watching in the studio. Someone says, polling agents will not be allowed. They would be physically thrown out of the polling counting booth. Someone says, this happened in Bengal, what's wrong with that, etc. Now, this is something that happens all over the world in democracies which we regard as low-quality democracy. This is what happens in Pakistan. After every election, they say the election was rigged, the whole machinery is foul. Do we want to get to that level? That's my question. I do not for the moment believe that these allegations are correct. My only thing and my plea to the Election Commission is you're supervising something very sacred.
Yes.
And please, this is one of the few things we have in this country. And one of the few things we have is that every loser, in 95% cases, losers say, all right, we lost because the public did not believe in it. That is what makes our democracy different from others. And because of the 3 instances that we are looking at, and so many instances that have happened in the run-up to this election, during the election, and after this, we are in the danger of losing that one critical quality. That is probably what Pranab Mukherjee ji has alerted us about. And my plea to the Election Commission would be, please go out of your way to satisfy everyone, even if all the allegations are false. Please examine them so deeply that the whole country can see them to be false, because this is a slippery slope. Once we start on this path, where every loser comes out and says, no, EVMs were manipulated, no, the official machinery was rigged, no, the counting was wrong. What is so great about democracy thereafter? And I really think Election Commission is not doing its duty in this respect.
Well, Raman Malik, I'm sure will want to respond, but Ami Yagnik hasn't spoken for a while. Ami Yagnik, at the end of the day, the question that is being raised also is that this is the same format and the same system you used when you won Rajasthan, when you won Madhya Pradesh, when you won Chhattisgarh. You were in power, the Congress was in power. EVMs were introduced in 2001. You were in power for 10 years since then, and you believed every election after that. Why is it now that you want to doubt the system?
Yes, you are asking a very interesting and a very relevant question. Why these issues were not raised when the assembly elections in the heartland took place? Well, at that time, you did not find the trucks moving here and there with EVM machines. There were no doubts raised, but here you find rampant incidents going around, and that is where the Election Commission as a statutory constitutional body should step in. So that question arose at that they should, if any party was aggrieved, could have brought this to the notice of the Election Commission, or the Election Commission should have taken at that time cognizance of these incidences, but it did not happen. But now, with several instances happening in front of our eyes and the Election Commission not coming out, it should be worried. It should be worried that we need some kind of reforms at our level as well. That would be a long-term strategy or a long-term step. But right now, we need to look at the people of this country. We are saving democracy here. We are talking of a transparent procedure. And so that is where the Election Commission will have to look at what the opposition parties are saying, because that is ultimately the say of the people of this country. It is not a party saying something. And that is why these issues have been raised, because of the instances that have happened right now. But one party, which is a ruling dispensation, thinks that well, nothing is wrong in this. That means it is not believing in democracy. It is not believing in any fair play. It is not even believing in being in a participatory democracy. Then what is the use of this ruling dispensation if it does not listen to the voice of the people? So I think the Election Commission has become has to take a sensitive step in this and think deeply.
All right, one second.
Look at the representation of the people.
No,
1 minute, Faye, I'm just coming to that. We are not talking about EVMs to be tampered. We are saying let the procedure be followed.
Okay, all right. So I just want to clarify, and I'm sure Yogendra Yadav will bear me out in this. Yami Yagnik said in earlier elections there were no allegations of foul play, Mr. Yadav. In fact, we've had allegations of foul play in almost every election. Mr. Bharat Kumar Rao was telling us stories about how back in the ballot paper days there was an allegation of magic ink that stamped the Congress irrespective of where you stamped your vote. So there have always been allegations in the past. So it's unfair to say that this is the first time the allegations have surfaced. Isn't that true?
Yes, there have been allegations. I do remember Mamata Banerjee, in fact, even after the EVM days, Mamata Banerjee, when she lost, she came out and said the whole thing was rigged and so on. But there's a difference. These allegations have been fringe allegations. Either they have been specified local allegations or they have been fringe allegations. Everyone scoffed at Mamata Banerjee when she did that. I remember Sharad Yadav once actually alleged that that particular bypoll was rigged, and he sat on dharna. Counting was held, he actually won the election. So we've had these things, but these were fringe things. What is happening in this election is actually that there are some serious question marks about the entire process. I, for one, do not believe that these irregularities are of a scale which would change the entire outcome. I do not think that the result that we are going to see on 23rd is going to be a rigged result. But I do believe that Election Commission could have done much, much more than it did to present itself as a fair body, to allay all allegations, all suspicions, which it has not. That's the only limited point I want to make.
Right. Raman Malik, I'll take one last response from you. Go ahead.
First of all, Ms. Yagnik should also remember that 2014, the entire control was under them. Do they intend to say that the machineries or everything were malfunctioning then also? The second most important point is, when you talk about all these things and you have fake videos of some TNN or whatever coming over and things like that, it also shows that the opposition today, because of its own shortfall of not able to communicate correctly, have even lost the way to lose, a graceful way to accept that the country may not have liked them and tell the country that, yes, we will try again hard. Having said that, I still want to ask something. That today we are a democracy, you say dissent is part of it, very good. And the elections always tell you this, that yes, the majority verdict is how you run the democracy with. So my point here is that today, when we are sitting on this edge of the results coming out, maybe these results are as per the direction of the exit polls or otherwise. Tomorrow, if it is otherwise, will you leave all the claims on the seats won?
Yes, so, I'll ask Mr. Saravanan, I don't have too much time, but I'll ask you that question tomorrow if it turns out, and it does seem from the exit polls that the DMK, your party, is going to do very well in Tamil Nadu. Will the opposition change its accusations if it turns out you, in fact, did well?
See, the suspicion is that the exit polls, a sham of those exit polls, were released to ensure, to train the people's mindset and push on the accounting day the same exit poll results. That is what we are worried about, and that is what we are trying. If that's not happened, if the opposition we are hoping that the opposition will do. We are confident that we will come to power, we will be able to oust the BJP. It is because we fought a valiant fight. We fought a valiant fight and we held. See now what's happening? The social media reports.
Mr. Sarfraz, I'm going to stop for a second here because I'm running out of time on this conversation and it's going to go back and forth between the politicians. But I think that I completely agree with Mr. Yadav about the fact that the Election Commission must go out of its way at this point in the social media era to clarify, to put aside our doubts and to build our confidence in the entire system. Now, I would like to continue this conversation while I thank the rest of my panelists with Mr. Yogendra Yadav. Mr. Yadav, if you'd give us, we have 7 minutes on this, if you'd give us the remaining 7 minutes for a one-on-one conversation with me. There was a tweet you put out, if I may bring it up, and I want to discuss your opinion of the entire election, now that we've seen the whole thing play out and we're only waiting for results. The tweet you said, the Congress must die. If it could not stop the BJP in this election to save the idea of India, this party has no positive role in Indian history. Today, it represents the single biggest obstacle to the creation of an alternative. I do believe you've clarified post that maybe the language was a little harsh, but what you meant was that the Congress is standing in the way. Would you explain to us how you believe the Congress is standing in the way right now of India as an idea?
Faye, I did not say the language was too harsh. I've only clarified one thing,
yes,
which is that from the wording, it appeared as if I was saying that in history, Congress did nothing well. And I clarified to say that no, in the pre-independence days and in the couple of decades after independence, Congress's role has been exemplary in this nation building. Who can deny that? The simple thing to remember, Faye, is, because somehow the word death evokes all these very intense emotions, and I guess many people felt that I was trying to kick the party which had done badly in exit polls, so they got emotional. I understand, I have no quibbles with anyone about that. Let me clarify what it is not. It is not a forecast. I know parties don't die in 1 or 2 days. It is not based only on these exit polls. It's based on something much longer, much deeper. And it is not anti-Congressism of the knee-jerk variety, because I respect Lohia. People think I must follow everything that Lohia does. I've been saying anti-Congressism is one of Lohia's legacy which should not be followed. That was a temporary tactics. It should not be turned into an ideology. So what is it? It is, and I should also clarify, there's no conduct against any Congress leaders. I've actually gone out of my way, not once, more than once, to say that Rahul Gandhi is more sincere than most politicians that I have met. He is more intelligent than most people think he is. The question is structural and larger. The larger question is this. In this country, we face a challenge to the foundational values of our republic. In the last 5 years, BJP has represented this challenge to the very idea of India. And if BJP wins the day after tomorrow, which I think is most likely, then we face a dual challenge. We face a challenge of electoral authoritarianism, where we would have elections but nothing else. And we face a challenge of non-theocratic majoritarianism, where formally we would be secular, but in reality minorities would be reduced to a second-rung status. My question is Congress the party which can be relied upon to wage a battle against these? As the principal national opposition party, the responsibility is first of all that of the Congress. And my only sense is that no, I do not see Congress having done it in the last 5 years. I do not see Congress being able to do that in the next few years. And if so, to my mind, Congress has outlived its historical function. If this party cannot come to the defense of this republic at this critical time, when the principal onus is on them, it's not on Samajwadi Party or BSP, these are small regional players. If Congress cannot perform its function at this critical time, then I would say this party has outlived its historical function. It is not only redundant. Redundancy would be one small problem. It is actually an obstacle, because big parties have this way of being like a magnet. They keep catching some energy. And to my mind, Congress is guilty of catching a lot of good energy in this country and making it futile and wasting it. And as long as a party like Congress carries, Congress will not fight the BJP and would not allow anyone else to do so, which is what big parties do. So the metaphor of death may have caused all kinds of emotions. So let me explain there are two kinds of deaths that we can talk about. There's a death by attrition. A party keeps going down and down very slowly, and when it's going down, it still ensures that no one else can come up, which the Congress has done for so many years in Odisha, in Gujarat. Won't defeat the BJP, but won't allow anyone else to come in. But there's another death, which is death by submergence, which is when the energy of one party is submerged in an identity, is submerged into something big. That is the kind of death that I'm talking about, where the energies, some positive energies which are still there in Congress, and I was actually very happy to read so many critics who were very harsh on me. I felt, all right, these Congresses at least feel something about it. So some energy which is inside Congress party, but principal energy that lies outside Congress has to come together to defend this country. That cannot happen under the banner and under the billboard called Indian National Congress.
Mr. Yadav, you're talking about the failure of the Congress. Do you believe that the Congress failed in its campaign, in its ability to organize, in its ability to design a message or pass on that message? Where was, if you were to critique, and you've watched so many elections in your career, if you were to critique the Congress's strategy in this election, where do you think it went wrong? And do you believe it's a little early to say it went wrong, or you think that this election is already lost to the Congress?
Faye, I don't go by the exact number of exit polls, numbers that they've given, but to my mind, the broad picture is quite clear. Mr. Modi is coming back to power. Unless some political earthquake is waiting, he's coming back to power. The only question is whether NDA gets a majority or the BJP by itself gets a majority. That's the only question we have to see. And also, I do not blame Congress for losing elections. All kinds of people lose elections. Sometimes you can do great work and still lose elections. Sometimes the other person is so strong and so powerful and does all kinds of things, you lose elections. My question is different. My question is, did Congress do what it could have done? Yes, it was up against money power, up against even the election commission, up against media. But what prevented Congress, for example, from trying to create a Mahagathbandhan in a true sense? Which election commission stopped the Congress from doing so? Which media stopped the Congress from doing so? Throughout this campaign, Congress did not have a message or a credible messenger. Who prevented Congress from doing so? For the last 5 years, farmers were fighting their battle. What was the Congress doing for the first 4 years? There was unemployment of a kind which was unprecedented.
Yes.
What was the principal opposition of this country doing? The BJP demonstrated a will to power for a purpose which I completely disapprove of, but there was a synchrony, there was a will to power. In the case of Congress, you have personal ambitions that are colliding with each other. Now, this happens in many parties. But the only justification for large, big parties like the Congress or the BJP is we have viability, we have reach, we can do these things which small people like Swaraj India cannot do. Yes, that's the advantage of a big shop, a big chain. But when the big chain cannot do what they are meant to do, so you cannot say to everyone else, finally you have to come to me because
I have another question for you.
And then say, but I couldn't.
The Congress brought in Priyanka Gandhi in this election, which was widely touted as, perhaps a weapon that could bring down the BJP because of her charisma. Do you believe that she was brought in too late? Or do you believe bringing her in was a mistake entirely because it cut the votes of the SP-BSP? How do you rate that move of bringing in Priyanka Gandhi into this election?
Once again, Faye, I think we should be very careful because if someone loses, it's very easy to say everything that you did was wrong. We don't know. But yes, Number one, do you want to bring a new person who you be? I mean, at the moment, to my mind, it's untested whether she actually was able to sway the votes or not. But if you want to bring her in, do you want to bring her in the last 3 months? I mean, make up your mind. You want to do it 1 year before election. You don't want to do that. And two, you want to deploy her in Uttar Pradesh, the one state where you shouldn't be playing a role. I mean, ideally, Congress should not have put up candidates in about 40, 50 seats. So what is the thought process? Why do you want to take Rahul Gandhi to Wayanad, where the other party which could win is potentially your ally? So what is not clear is any strategic thinking. What is not clear is whether there is any roadmap or strategy at all. These are issues that really may have hurt the Congress. So I don't want to be that kind of a critic who takes advantage of a weak moment. I'm raising questions which are deep, which are structural, and the larger question remains, is Congress that kind of an instrument which can still perform something valuable in history at this critical juncture when our republic is under challenge? That is the question we should be debating, not me, not deaths, not Rahul Gandhi, not Priyanka Gandhi.
All right, Mr. Yogendra Yadav, thank you so much for giving us time this weekend, this evening, and clarifying those questions that were raised about the tweet that you asked, that you put out. Mr. Yogendra Yadav had put out a tweet saying the Congress can no longer fulfill the job of the lead opposition, which galvanizes the support of so many people at this very crucial time in our country's history. We've run out of time really, but just to put it in a nutshell, when it comes to the EVMs, it is really up to the Election Commission to put aside any sort of doubt in the average citizen's mind more than anybody else. Right now, it doesn't matter what the opposition thinks or what the ruling party thinks. It matters what the citizen believes. If the citizen believes this is a fair election and the citizen has faith in the democratic process, that's the most important part of all. It is the Election Commission's responsibility to come out and make sure that any doubt in the citizen's mind is cleared immediately. That is the most important point. Thanks for watching.